Have you ever wondered what it might feel like to have a parasite inside your stomach? Well, in today's episode, we're just going to hang back for a little bit and we're going to chat about a story of mine that happened about 4 or 5 years ago. And so, about 4 or 5 years ago, this boy Slip ended up going on a study abroad experience to Bolivia. I was about 20 at the time, I believe, and I ended up going with my college and all of my classmates. And I ended up meeting a ton of different students internationally, and we ended up going and traveling all around Bolivia. And instead of having a normal study abroad experience where you kind of sit down in class and you take notes and you learn specific content and that sort of thing, we actually ended up traveling around the entire country of Bolivia, and we got to take class from very important people around Bolivian society, people like politicians and journalists and historical figures and experts in all these different sorts of fields. And it was a really incredible experience. We had to talk in Spanish the entire time. There was no English allowed whatsoever. And so it was definitely a challenge at first and a completely new experience for me to have been in. I had already been to India one time as a sophomore in college, but this was my junior year, and India was a wacky experience. If you ever want me to talk about that, I'm more than happy to. I have tons of really crazy, a couple of dangerous stories that ended up happening in India as well. But in Bolivia, I was the only guy out of every single person in my trip. A bunch of other gals, a bunch of wonderful people that I made lifelong memories with. And there were 17 of us, and we had 3 chaperones as well. All of the chaperones were women, and all of us, including myself, ended up contracting either E. coli, which I'm sure you may have heard of, with Chipotle and everything that went on a couple of years ago, or all of us, or most of us, also ended up getting amoebas, which is what ended up happening to me. I ended up getting both E. coli and amoebas at the same time. And so you might be wondering, how does that happen? How do you get E. coli and amoebas at the same time? And for those of you that might live in more of the Western world, and you haven't gone other places where the water might not be so great, one rule of thumb is to make sure that you don't eat anything or drink anything that doesn't have incredibly purified water. And that means during the entire time that you're there, you need to be really careful, because all of the incredible restaurants that you want to go to and all of the pop-up shops that are on the street and the street vendors with all the incredible Latin food, it's all so enticing, right? But the thing is, so much of the food is actually prepared in water that has bacteria in it. And one thing that's actually really interesting that I didn't know until this experience is that way more people in the world live with E. coli and amoebas and parasites and things like that than most people in the Western developed world. And their gut biomes are actually a lot stronger. They're just used to living with these sorts of bacteria. And that's why so many people in so many different places in the world, for me, speaking of my experience of Bolivia and of India in particular, you really have to totally be careful. You really can't eat anything, but the people that live there live with the bacteria in their stomach. They live with the amoebas, and they live with the E. coli and that sort of thing. And so they don't have any problems. They can just carry on with their day-to-day life, and they don't really seem to have many side effects or anything like that. It's not really a problem. But for those of us Westerners that are coming in, we have these incredibly purified gut biomes, and everything is pristine and pitch perfect and whatnot, and we're not used to having to deal with really any difficult invaders when it comes to bacteria in our gut biome and that sort of thing. When we end up getting exposed to E. coli or to amoebas, it completely wreaks havoc on our system. And speaking of my experience in particular, it was no fun whatsoever, regardless of the pain that I was feeling. Knowing that the pain was coming from a parasite, and I'm sure many of you back in elementary school or middle school or whatever it was may have seen in a textbook a picture of an amoeba, and I'll flash one up on the screen right now. And they are not very good looking. They're incredibly ugly looking. And so knowing that was inside me was no fun whatsoever. And so for those of you that are wondering, when I started talking today about what does it feel like to have a parasite inside your body, for someone that has gone through it, excuse me, 2 separate times now, I can say it's no fun. It feels, you know that the bacteria or the parasite is in your body. And so the pain feeling is one of a sharp, not like a throb, but like a throbbing consistency, but a sharp pain. And sometimes it happens when you move. Sometimes if you were just sitting down or lying down in bed or whatever it would be, you would just get this sharp pain that would completely take you out of anything, and you would kind of have to like retch and kind of curl up in a ball for a second almost, because the pain just for that specific pinpoint, that specific sharpness in time, it would just be so consuming and so painful that it would take everything out of you. And the worst thing on top of that, of being like, and knowing that it was because I was being, eaten alive by a parasite, right? It was feeding off of me, and I wasn't getting anything back in return. And I knew what amoebas looked like, and so that was no fun whatsoever. And part of having E. coli at the same time with it is that when you have E. coli, your stomach just completely explodes. I have another story about getting E. coli in India. It's a wonderful a wonderful story, and it's no fun whatsoever, I promise. But when you have E. coli, your stomach just explodes. And you may have had this stomach bug, and I've had it plenty of times before, but when you have E. coli, you really cannot keep anything inside your body. And the worst thing about it, too, is that you can't have really any foods with any sort of spices or anything fancy. Any of the normal things that you would normally like to eat, you can pretty much only eat like really boring carbs, like just like bread or toast with nothing on it, or saltine crackers or that sort of thing. Just really bland carbs, because if you give your gut biome, when you have E. coli, anything else, they just kind of go crazy for all of those sorts of things, and you can feel the attack, and it's no fun whatsoever. And once again, knowing what it's coming from is no fun whatsoever. And so think about having an amoeba, right? And you're studying abroad, and you're in a brand new country, and you can't speak your language whatsoever. And, just speaking as a guy in particular, you're the only guy there, and no one can really understand, and you're stuck in, you're kind of in almost a scary foreign new place, and you're struggling so much, and you have no one to take care of you. And so you have this sharpness, the pain from the amoeba, and then at the same time, you have the E. coli coming on through and making it so you can't keep anything in. And so you're hungry, but you don't want to eat anything because you know the pain, and you want to go up and go to the bathroom, but you know that if you move, then you're going to have the pain, and you know what the entire experience, all of the symptoms, what it's coming from, and you just feel horrible, right? And like, oh my gosh, I am getting eaten alive right now. And so it takes a couple of days, or maybe, it might take a little bit less time in the Western world. If you're to get medicine, what you need to do is just get on antibiotics, and it'll flush out your system. It'll clear it. That's the wonder of Western medicine and that sort of thing. But when I'm in Bolivia, things are much more difficult to get your hands on Western medicine. Much more of an ordeal, and especially when you have to speak in Spanish and you don't know the names of what you need, or you don't know the names of the symptoms or anything like that, and you have to figure it all out by yourself while you have all these symptoms, like while you're feeling all the pain and while you can't keep anything in, and you're driving to try to figure out how to get the antibiotics, and you can't even like stay in the car because you're having so many stomach problems and you're just in so much pain and that sort of thing. And so it took me about 3 or 4 days of just laying in bed and not being able to get any support. I had a host stay family that was trying to get the medicine for me because I couldn't really do anything. And then I eventually kind of had to take it onto my own hands a little bit and make some phone calls in Spanish and call up a taxi cab and drive feeling horribly over to make an appointment to get the antibiotics. And then it took another, I think, day and a half for me to get the medicine. So I was just wound up in bed for 5 days, getting eaten alive by parasites. And that was honestly not even one of the bad things. That was really low on the amount of like incredible, powerful, like life-altering, really story-driven experiences in my life. I have so many stories from Bolivia and from India. For example, there was a military overthrow when I was in Bolivia, and I was stuck there. That's a whole story in itself, and I almost died when I was in India. So if you'd ever like for me to talk about those stories, I'm more than happy to do it, but I kind of just wanted to hang out with you for a little bit. If you're enjoying this type of content and this sort of rant and kickback and whatever it be, please do consider subscribing, because a lot more is coming soon, not only to this channel, but the main channel, and a lot more just like this as well. So I hope you're well. Thank you so much for taking a chance on a small channel like me, and I will see you in the next video.